Ready? 2, 1, 2.
may we please rise as the speaker and the chair take their seats. I humbly ask that you put your phones on silence as we are about to start this lecture. Thank you.
Please have your seat. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. The President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, the past Presidents of the Academy, Vice Presidents, Fellows of the Academy, Honorable Ministers, Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President and Fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, I warmly welcome all of you to this evening's event. It is a tradition of the Academy and most institutions of higher learning to give their newly elected members an opportunity to deliver their inaugural lectures in their areas of expertise and to their colleagues and the general public at large. This evening, we are privileged to have a scholar to speak to us on a very topical subject. This lecture used to be the Academy's in-house program, but because of its usefulness to our friends in academia and indeed to the general public, it has been made a public lecture since 1998. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the chair for this evening's event, and who will take over from me and introduce the speaker for this evening. Our chairperson for this evening's event is Professor R.A. AYEE. He is the Vice President in charge of the Arts section of the Academy. And he's actually occupied this position since January 2023. He held the positions of Rector, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Dean and Head of the 3 higher education institutions in Ghana and South Africa. He was elected a Fellow of the Academy in 2005 and served as Assistant Honorary Secretary for the Arts section between 2014 and 2015, as well as Honorary Treasurer between 2007 and 2017. He was the occupant of the UNESCO United Nations University Leadership Academy Chair in Leadership Studies at the University of Jordan in 2001, and the Emeka Awanku Visiting Chair of Commonwealth Studies, Institute of Commonwealth Studies, University of London in 2013. He served as a member of a team of experts that drafted Ghana's National Decentralization Policy Framework and Action Plan between 2015 and 2019, and the National Decentralization Policy and Strategy between 2020 and 2024. Professor AGYEI has over 200 publications in several areas of political science, public policy, and administration. His latest publications include 3 co-edited books on think tanks, governance and development in Africa, political institutions, party politics and communication in Ghana, 3 decades of the Fourth Republic, and public sector management and economic governance in Ghana, 3 decades of the Fourth Republic. His current research interests include higher education governance and management, politicians and bureaucrats relationship, political institutions, and democratic backsliding. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the chair for this evening's event, Professor AGYEI.
President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, past presidents, current and past vice presidents, fellows of the Academy, my dear students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have an inaugural lecture. The title is topical. It is on flavors of spatial diversity in drinking water access in Ghana. We all drink water, so it should be intriguing, it should interest all of us, because water is life. And we have a very competent speaker in the person of Professor Samuel AGYEI-MENSAH, who is a professor of geography at the University of Ghana and a visiting professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Imperial College, London. He obtained his undergraduate degree in Geography and Resource Development from the University of Ghana and master's and doctoral degrees in Medical Geography from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Norway. He was the foundation provost in the College of Humanities, Dean, School of Social Sciences, and head Department of Geography and Resource Development, all at the University of Ghana. Professor AGYEI-MENSAH has held visiting appointments in a number of universities, including Imperial College, London, UK, University of Canterbury, Christchurch, New Zealand, and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Trondheim, Norway. He is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences and professor extraordinary, Stellenbosch University in South Africa. Professor AGYEI-MENSAH's research focuses on population and health geography with particular attention on the difference that space makes to environmental and population health. His early research was on demographic and epidemiological transition in Africa through Ghana, exploring issues such as fertility decline, the diffusion of HIV, AIDS, ethnic and residential segregation, and the double burden of infectious and non-communicable diseases. Since then, his work has centered on environmental health with a focus on air pollution, drinking water, and climate change. He serves on the editorial boards of Population and Environment, Springer, Environmental Research, Health, IOP Science, and the Ghana Journal of Geography, Ghana Geographers Association. Professor AGYEI-MENSAH is engaged in a number of capacity building and collaborative research projects. He is the principal investigator PI for the Mellon Foundation project, building capacity for early career humanities scholars in Africa, a partnership involving the University of Ghana, Stellenbosch University in South Africa, American University in Cairo, Egypt, and Washington University in St. Louis, USA. He is the co-PI for the Jada Henkel Foundation funded project, enhancing doctoral training in the humanities in West Africa. His ongoing collaborative research projects include pathways to equitable health cities, funded by Wellcome Trust, climate change resilient, equitable health cities in Africa, Clarita Africa, also funded by the Wellcome Trust and the Norwegian Research Council funded project, Epidemic Remains, Landscapes of Infectious Disease control in Africa, and how they shape future health. President of the Academy, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to present to you our speaker, Professor Samuel AGYEI-MENSAH.
The President of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Vice President for the Sciences. Thank you. Before I start, I would like to extend my thanks to the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences for the opportunity to deliver this inaugural lecture. I would also like to thank all those present, both in person and online, particularly our distinguished guests, and more especially our dear students. The title of the presentation, Flavors of Spatial Diversity in Drinking Water in Ghana, highlights what is not in dispute: the diversity of the drinking water landscape in contemporary Ghana. Flavors of Spatial Diversity not only emphasizes the heterogeneity of our drinking water patterns, but also acknowledges the range of choices available when it comes to drinking water. I must emphasize that the word flavors in the title of the lecture does not refer to the aesthetic qualities such as smell, taste, odor. I'm also mindful of the effects of illegal mining in our water bodies and the extent to which it has compromised water quality and the implications for health, food security, and our well-being. Coming from a background in medical geography, my primary objective is to examine the spatiotemporal patterns of drinking water availability in Ghana and the drivers of these patterns. I'm also interested in the challenges facing our water sector and the interventions needed to address them. Although I do emphasize the word spatial, it is important to note that social is also spatial. As human beings do have a spatial location, it also includes class. Medical geography is simply the application of geographical concepts and techniques to health-related issues. There are three main areas or traditions in medical geography: the disease ecology tradition, which is preoccupied with mapping diseases within the context of disease ecology, and we also have the health service tradition. In the 1980s, in line with the cultural turn in geography, Robin Keynes of the University of Wellington in New Zealand, in a series of articles, came up with a third tradition, the geography of health, which is more attentive to place instead of space, and also uses qualitative methods as opposed to the quantitative tradition of disease ecology and the health service traditions. As a graduate student in Norway, reading medical geography, I was introduced to the work of David Smith on welfare geography, a human approach, published by Edward Arnold in 1977. Welfare geography emerged as a reaction to the quantitative and model building traditions of the 1960s. In the 70s, there was a major redirection of human geography towards social problems such as poverty, hunger, crime, racial discrimination, education, and water provision. Smith's work raised concerns about the unacceptable inequality and social justice in the world. In the spatial context, Smith defined welfare geography as the study of who gets what, where, and how. His work sought to reinstate people as the central concern of human geography. Smith went further to state that a fairer distribution of welfare can be achieved when these concerns have been addressed. He argued that welfare geography addresses the distribution of resources and services which directly impact health outcomes, thus positioning medical geography as a subset within the broader context of welfare geography. This consciousness, facility of tackling the spatial dimension, is a major component of resource and environmental management not provided by those in other disciplines and tends to be overlooked if a geographer does not arrange it. In this lecture, I demonstrate how a multi-scale spatial framework enlarges our understanding of drinking water access in Ghana. Access to drinking water is mapped at 4 geographical scales. First, districts. Second, greater metropolitan areas. And here I'll focus on the greater Tamale metropolitan area and the greater Accra metropolitan area. The third is localities, and lastly, enumeration area. The approach I've adopted has revealed greater spatial heterogeneity than we recognize in a single-scale approach. The findings strengthen the assessment of progress in achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6, universal access to safe water, as well as informing the planning of appropriate localized solutions that can improve population health and well-being. The lecture is divided into 6 parts. Following the introduction, Session 2 examines the conceptual linkages between geography, water, and health. This is followed in Session 3 with an overview of the methods and data sources used for the lecture. Chapter 4 explores the diversity of drinking water in Ghana based on geographical mapping and also attempts to explain these patterns. Section 5 discusses the challenges in the interventions in water sector in Ghana. So obviously, illegal mining is one of the challenges. In Section 6, I conclude by summarizing the key findings and provide some policy recommendations. So I have 2 personalities, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, and John Snow, and also the Sustainable Development Goals. The interconnections of water, health, and geography trace back to more than 2,000 years when Hippocrates stated in his work on Earth's waters and places that whoever wishes to investigate human health properly should not only consider geographical peculiarities of each locality, seasons of the year, characteristics of water such as quality and quantity, but also human behavior, different lifestyles and habits. But the classic modern example of linking water security, human health, and geography was by John Snow, a British, identifying the London Broad Street pump as the source of a major cholera outbreak. In 1854, a severe cholera outbreak struck the Soho district in London. At that time, most people believed that cholera was spread through the air. John Snow used the power of geographical mapping to identify the cholera outbreak in London. Snow's map was able to spatially associate cholera cases with a single contaminated water pump. The map he created was based on the locations of deaths due to cholera, which allowed him to see a clear pattern that no one had noticed yet, and ultimately determine the source of the outbreak. The Sustainable Development Goals also makes certain powerful statements with respect to geography. In all, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, as could be seen on the screen, and there are 169 targets. Goal 6 is the focus of this lecture, clean water and sanitation. And there's also a mention of Goal 10, which talks about reducing inequalities, which is also very central to this lecture. The Sustainable Development Goals also commit member states to leave no one behind, and that SDG indicators should be disaggregated where necessary by income, sex, age, race, ethnicity, migration, status, disability, and once again, geographical location. So the SDGs make certain profound statements with respect to geography, and even though it seems the SDGs is a global, national, we need to localize the SDGs within the context of the 16. So Goal 6, SDG Goal 6, has 6 targets, but for purposes of this lecture, I think we can focus on target 6.1 and 6.3. So 6.1 talks about achieving universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. And I'm just wondering whether by 2030, we would be able to achieve this target. And 2030 also talks about improving water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, etc. Once again, with the current trend of galamsey compromising our water quality, I'm also wondering whether we can also achieve this within the context of pollution. There are certain terminologies that I think we should be conversant with as I proceed, because it has implications of the subsequent discussions. These are all within the context of the SDGs. We have what we call the safely managed, which means drinking water from an improved source that is accessible on premises, available when needed, and free from fecal and priority chemical contamination. Then basic drinking water from an improved source, provided collection time is not more than 30 minutes, then limited when it exceeds 30 minutes. Unimproved drinking water from an unprotected dark well, unprotected spring, and also surface water. So this gives us a sense of safely managed drinking water when you look at the world globally. And we are looking at the proportion of the population using safely managed drinking water services. And as I mentioned earlier, safely managed drinking water, we are looking at water available within premises, easily accessible, and also free from any contamination. We see that the major regions, especially when you look at New Zealand, both the South and the North Island, over 99% are within the confines of safely managed drinking water. Perhaps we could look at Africa. Africa, it seems, is only Algeria. Africa, it seems it's only Algeria, which fares within the 51 to 75. And I'm just looking at where our country is. Can we find Ghana? So where do we fall in? I don't even know whether I'm able to locate Ghana. Okay. So where do we find ourselves? 26 to 50%. But when we take, which country is this? In the United States. Canada, obviously more than 99%. And I think Russia within the 76 to 99. The United Kingdom, greater 99%. So this gives us some perspective with respect to safely managed drinking water services. And looking at the global pattern, it's in a way conceals significant differences at the national and local levels. So even though Sustainable Development Goals, targets, terminologies could in a way be also described at the global level, the global level picture does not really tell us anything with respect to the variations within the country and the districts. That's one of the things that I seek. I wouldn't have shown this slide here. I mean, for a foreign audience, this would be more appropriate. But I think we are all conversant with these. But our students, I was wondering, some of you, I'm sure you've never lived in a rural area before. You don't even know what a borehole is. You're not taking water from the stream, etc. So this gives us a sense of some of the sources of drinking water, the types. So sachet water, I think we all know sachet water. And we also know a well, then taking water from the stream, etc. And depending on the type of water, it has very strong implications, especially in terms of health. Safely managed drinking water. The assumption is that it passes through the various purification measures. So that is why I think the public is very concerned about the effects of galamsey on our drinking water, because it compromises the abstraction of the raw water, so that the raw water, we need more chemicals to be able to purify. The processes goes through coagulation, flocculation, filtration, chlorination, etc. So coagulation using aluminum sulfate, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that the water treatment goes through several processes. So once the quality of the water is compromised, what it means is that we need more chemicals. And at times, I mean, we are, it's coming out that some of these water cannot even be purified, especially when mercury, cyanide, etc. So I think the situation is very, very there. So let me just go through with a brief overview of the sources of data I'm going to use. So essentially, it's based on the two most recent censuses conducted in the country, the 2010 and the 2021. Then for the greater metropolitan areas, as I said earlier, the focus will be on Gama and the greater Tamale metropolitan area, then locality and enumeration area. Then the data, we are looking at household drinking water sources, shape files, and also mining footprints in some parts of southern Ghana, using some of the illegal mining sites. And I borrowed one of these maps from the Center for Remote Sensing and Geographical Information Services at the University of Ghana. They have been conducting satellite image analysis of illegal mining sites since 2015. So they have maps for 2015, 16, 17, 18. The most recent one is 2023, which I'm using for purposes of this lecture. So as I said, the decentralization exercise in Ghana somewhere in the late 1980s, 88, 89, came up with about 110 districts. And currently we have 261 districts. The latest to be added, I'm sure we all familiar with the Guan districts. I mean the issues with the Guan district. So that makes it 261. Then on the far right, we have the Greater Accra metropolitan area. This is, the Greater Metropolitan Areas is a term that was coined somewhere in the early 1990s by Professor Sonsori from our department, the fellow of the academy, Professor Youngson, Professor George Bennett, in their work in Accra. And they felt that in terms of planning within the Accra metropolitan area, due to urban sprawl and the emergence of communities around the periphery of AMA, it makes sense to look at Accra in terms of the broader region to encompass all these things, especially in terms of planning. So Professor Sonsori and his all from the Department of Geography came up with this Greater Accra metropolitan area, which is different from Greater Accra region. So Greater Accra metropolitan area is different from Greater Accra region, and I think it encompasses three main districts, the Accra metropolitan area, the Gan district, and the Tema metropolitan area. Then on the left, we have the Greater Tamale metropolitan area, which comprises of Tamale metropolitan area and Sagnarigu municipal district. Then for the localities, I also have a map, localities within the greater Tamale metropolitan area. And on the far right, we have the enumeration areas for the Greater Accra metropolitan area. The enumeration areas are used for the conduct of censuses to enumerate people. And I think it's 0.3 kilometers squared, especially in terms of the boundary. Yes, so I think I'm now drawing closer to the main crux of the lecture. On the left, we have 2010 mapping of source of the most dominant source of drinking water in Ghana. So in 2010, we have 216 districts, and 2021, the most recent census, we had 261 districts. So the question which was asked in the 2010 census, which is the same as happened for the 2021, is what's the main source of drinking water available to your household? And the census lists 15 categories of sources of drinking water. So this is what we've used or have used to be able to regionalize the so what the map tries to tell us is the most dominant source of drinking water. Following from here, I will show, using bar graphs, about the, apart from the dominant, what are the other types of sources of drinking water. But this is the WA district or WA municipality. In 2010, the most dominant source of drinking water was borehole. And that is something not to be unexpected, because in 1952, there was a plant in WA which was based on 14 boreholes drawn from 4 wells. But as we could see, in 2021, what has happened, the most dominant source of drinking water is pipe-borne, I think, outside dwellings. So what it means is that in 2021, one municipality, they are now using pipe-borne water has become more dominant. And in 2008, there was a new plant that was established on the Black Volta Jambusi plant, which was financed by the Korean government. So we see two different contrasts in terms of the dominant water sources, which is as a result of government or government intervention in the provision of a water plant. And what they were using at first, before colonial, before independence, 1952, on wells. The next one, I think I should be a bit... Okay, let's move to the mining site. This is AGYEI-MENSAH. The capital is Enchi. And in 2010, the most dominant source of water was river and stream. And I don't know the pattern, what is unfolding here. If we move to this is at Saint Fusu, the most dominant drinking water was also borehole. But when we move to 2021, at Saint Fusu, it's now sachet water. Then Wasa Akropong is in the Prestia Huni Valley Municipal District. Then Bogoso, Wasa Akropong is Wasa Amenfi East Municipal District. They have the capital, Wasa Akropong. And Prestia Huni Valley Municipal District has the capital, Bogoso. So these mining areas all had river and streams, drawing water from rivers and streams in 2010. When we move to 2021, it's sachet water. So I don't know what is explaining this shift. Is it because the water from the streams is now contaminated, so 2021 they are changed to sachet water? Or is it also due to what we call expansionist diffusion, a combination of hierarchical and contagious diffusion, in the sense that sachet water originally started from the Greater Accra region, Accra, so centers of hierarchy moving down, cascading to lower levels, or is it as a result of water contamination? And we can also look at Cape Coast. Cape Coast was pipe-borne water. When we move to 2021, sachet water. And the increase is very significant because in 2021, about 62% of the population, residents of Cape Coast, in terms of dominant source of drinking water, they were ascribing it to sachet. They were ascribing it to sachet water. Then perhaps the West Mamprusi district, Wale Wale has not experienced any. In 2010, it was protected well, and in 2021, still protected well. So we have instances where the most dominant source of drinking water in 2010 was rivers and or streams, as in some of the mining areas in the western region of Ghana. But in 2021, there's been a significant change. Now the pattern has changed to sachet water. We have other districts like the West Mamprusi with Wale Wale. We've not seen any significant change. Cape Coast with pipe-borne water, now sachet water. But I think the most significant aspect here has to do with the diffusion of sachet water. And also, we also have a significant proportion of the districts also utilizing boreholes as the most dominant source of drinking water. So this bar graph illustrates the proportion of the different water types. So AGYEI Swamine districts, about 50%, as we said earlier, on river and stream. But we also have other categories. So for example, borehole and pump, about 20%, and we also have public standpipe. But what is also interesting here, if we look at the extreme right, 2021, is the dominance of sachet water. So the diffusion of sachet water is really very interesting. And I'm more interested in the western region, the mining areas, because of the current discussions on legal mining. So, because we've not really asked the question with respect to what were they drinking at first, what were the mining areas drinking, has there been any change in terms of these patterns? But I think the census statistics provide us with some basis for analyzing these patterns. We published a paper here, this was published in PLOS Medicine, on the diffusion of sachet water, but the clusters, especially in terms of the groupings, are different from what are shown areas. So I think it's, at that time, we didn't have the most recent census, 2021. So the 2017 is based on the Ghana Living Standards Survey data. So this map also looks at patterns of pipe-borne water inside premises in Ghana. And I think it's very, very clear that only a few centers or towns, and here I think I'm referring to the major towns in the country. So you take Accra, Koforidua, Kumasi, Techiman. These are areas where about more than maybe between 4 to 5% of heads of households were using or had pipe-borne water inside premises. I think this is not a good picture for the country, especially looking at the percentage of the population households drinking pipe-borne water inside premises based on the census it seems it's more tailored towards the major towns and cities in the country. Yes, so we are now moving to the Greater Accra metropolitan area. And this is also very interesting. I mean, we look at the extreme right and we see sachet water all over the place. It's really very striking. And this is not my data, it's coming from the census. And the data is available online. The Ghana Statistical Service provides this data online, so everybody can access this data. And sachet water is, but I think there's something interesting here, which I'll take up at the concluding section. Tema metropolitan area in 2010, I think about 50%, about 48, so 50% of the heads of households in Tema metropolitan area were deriving their source of drinking water from pipe-borne water inside dwelling. So Tema is very striking. Tema is very unique. And when you move to even better than Accra metropolitan area in terms of the percentages, but sachet water was also gradually creeping in. But when we moved to 2021, we realized that almost all the districts, GAAS South, Capital, Inglesia, Manfo, and GAAS East, GAAS Central, you could see that the sachet water has taken over. So the question is, why Tema? And I was thinking that Tema was a planned industrial city, Nkrumah's idea of an industrial city. So the infrastructure was laid, especially in terms of connections of pipe-borne water, community. Here we are talking about communities 1 to 12. But subsequently, I think all the other communities, now today we are talking about this community 25 or 26-8. So Tema provides a very interesting picture here. But I think what is interesting here is the diffusion of sachet water. So how do we explain this? Is it because of the quality of the water coming through the pipes? Is it because of rationing? Is it also the perception of quality of drinking water? Is it also the... I don't think it's a question of cost, because sachet water, in the long run, is more expensive than the water coming from the pipes. So issues about rationing, issues about development before planning, because we are developing, putting up houses without any planning. Unlike planning before development. Tema's case is a classic example of planning before development. And that, I think, partly explains these. Yes, so almost getting half through. These are based on enumeration areas, trying to find out diversity of drinking water at the EA level. So this is based on the 2010 census. So there was about 519 enumeration areas in the Greater Accra metropolitan area. The red, we use the entropy measure, which gives us a sense of the multiplicity of drinking water sources that households are using. And an entropy measure of 0 means that that particular EA is using only one single type of water. So when we look at Adenta, my eyes, I can't really see where Adenta is. Is it Adenta? Somewhere. Yeah. So we look at the Tema area. So all these red spots, okay, so all the red spots, I think the import here is that all the red spots, they depend on one dominant source of drinking water. But it tells you the diversity of drinking water types within the Greater Accra metropolitan area. On the right side, we're also interested in looking at wealth and type of drinking water. So we use the index of concentration at the extremes. And the census does not ask questions on income, so we used consumption indicators based on consumption indicators at the household to regionalize this data. Yeah, so this was published in Population and Environment, and the lead author is my doctoral student, I'm sure he's here, Jacob Doku-Tete, who is now a postdoc. And he keeps on telling people my water paper, but I tell him that it's not your water paper. You know, I was the corresponding author. So it's a teamwork. So Jacob, it's a teamwork. So it's not your water paper. I'm also part of it. So this is diversity of drinking water sources by locality. And we see here, this is Greater Tamale Metropolitan Area, Sagnerigu, and Tamale Metropolis. Tamale Metropolis was originally a district, but was elevated to the status of a metropolis in 2004. But Sagnerigu was carved out of Tamale Metropolis in 2010. So we have these two districts, but as we could see, pipe-borne water is mainly concentrated this side. So the localities further away from the major towns, Tamale, Sagnerigu, Tuniyeli, etc. These are the more deprived. So even at the local level, there are significant variations with respect to type of drinking water. So the whole essence here is to show, depending on the level, the enumeration area level, there are variations. It comes to the locality areas, you also see a very significant differences with respect to. But it appears pipe-borne water is more clustered around the major localities. And as I said, Dallon treatment plants, the northwest of, north of Kumbugu, this water treatment plant was established in Tamale in 1972 on the White Volta. So we see that the communities, I mean Sagnerigu and Tamale, the blue lines are the pipelines. So it means the communities further on the right side where we don't have the pipelines, they don't have access to pipe-borne water. But in beginning from 2013, 2017, a water expansion exercise was undertaken in Tamale. So I think Tamale now has another water treatment plant extending towards some of the communities. So let's look at the challenges and some of the interventions. And obviously the first challenge is illegal mining. So we try to overlay the footprints. So footprints of mining footprints essentially tells us the surface that has been disturbed in terms of the mining. So it could be pits, the roads. So the red lines tells you the, so I'm just looking at the rivers that Ankobra, Ofin, yes. And the deep red, where these mining footprints are, we could see the western parts of Ghana. So the western region is, I think it's a major, I know Ashanti region, in Nyinahin, even Bekwai, Konongo, Bekwai, even Kumasi, around Kumasi area, Sefi, so Wasa, Krupon, Bogoso, Enchi, that means AYEE municipal district, and even in Crawford, the birthplace of our first president. Yeah, so the Galamsey is more profound, especially in the western region. The northern part is a bit deliberate. We wanted to focus, or I wanted to focus on the southern part of the country. Yeah. Yeah, so when you zoom in the Bogoso area, Prestia, Huni Valley, Municipal Districts, this is what you see. And I think it's very disturbing. So this is Bogoso. So these are settlements. So this is the Ashode and Cobra. And you could see footprints of illegal mining all over the place. So this is a satellite image with special permission from the Center for Remote Sensing and Geographical Information Services at the Geography Department. We are in the same building. So they have conducted these satellite images since 2015. And so the Galamsey is really, illegal mining is real. When I saw the 2015 compared to the 2023, it's really very sad. The extent of the change is really very alarming. Yeah. Yes, I came across this overview of the existing buffer zones, bylaws, and specifications. And I was also concerned, I don't know whether it has been reviewed. The source is from the Ministry of Works, Water Resources, Works and Housing 2013. Buffer zone policy managing freshwater bodies is in Ghana. So the Ministry of Lands, Forestry and Mines, they are telling us that minimum of 100 meters off water mark should be declared as protected areas. So does it mean that if I'm mining about 120 meters is allowed? So these are the buffer, and I'm just wondering, in the heat and peak of illegal mining activities, do we need to revise this? Because 100 meters buffer, I think it's not acceptable. So it means that if we say that people should not mine at water bodies, it means that you can mine 100 meters and above. I don't know exactly how this plays out, but interestingly, different organizations have different buffer zones. So I think there's a need for a review of this buffer zone arrangements, and personally I feel that we should review these buffer zones, because the minimum of 100 meters, I think that's not really, it's unacceptable. And that perhaps may be accounting for, because you can't stop somebody who is mining beyond, so it means within 100 meters it's not allowed, but beyond 100 meters you can mine. I mean, you can't arrest such a person. Yeah. So population growth and urban expansion is also one of the major challenges facing the water sector. So it boils up to demand and supply. The Ghana Water Company cannot provide water services, especially in terms of connections to households, because of population growth and urban expansion. And especially what I said earlier about development before planning. So people put up houses in areas, there are no connection, and they blame Ghana Water Company for not providing the water. I think it should be the reverse, planning before development, as happened in the case of Tema in 1960. Yes, so this is what I was just talking about from the British Hansard Archive. Nkrumah in 1960, Diazis, he was an architect from Greek. He was handing the miniature plan of Tema to Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, our president. He looks excited receiving that miniature. And interestingly, the debates about Tema had started at in Britain, I mean, in London, there was, sorry, there was a debate which was captured in the British Hansard about oh. So, Jacob, you can take your water. So these conversations, Mr. Macpherson said, asked the Colonial Secretary for the colonies, the composition of the Thermal Development Corporation, to whom it is responsible and how it should be financed. And Littleton said the corporation is expected to be set up within the next few months, and it will consist of a chairman, a managing director, and 8 members appointed with the approval of the governor in council by the Minister of Local Government and Housing, to whom the corporation will be responsible. It will be financed by grants and loans from the Gold Coast government. So the discussions had even started before attainment of independence, which was captured in the British Hansard. But it's interesting how the project was financed by the Ford Foundation, and Nkrumah was supposed to be a socialist, and wondering how he was able to obtain money from the US at that time to finance such a project. So Nkrumah could be diplomatic at times. Yeah. So one of the major problems we are facing, some of the water pipes were laid during the colonial period, before the attainment of independence. They've never been replaced, they've never been changed. So we have a big issue. When we solve the Galamsey issue, I think the next will be the pipes. And the Ghana Water Company Limited is doing well. Here they are trying to replace the biggest pipeline after 50 years of corrosion. This is captured in My Joy Online, September 2024. So there are a number of pipes that need to be replaced, and it comes with finance. We need to be able to finance these infrastructural developments. Climate change, of course, depending on now climate change, changing precipitating patterns, increased frequency and droughts are all affecting our levels, especially in terms of rainfall. And so discussion and conclusion, I'm almost done. Evidence from this lecture has shown significant diversity in drinking water access across districts, greater metropolitan areas, localities, as well as enumeration areas. This has highlighted the importance of data disaggregation by geographical location, which is also a requirement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the study also demonstrates how national district scale mapping can obscure finite details when it comes to the metropolitan locality and the enumeration area levels. The diversity maps presented in this lecture also provide monitoring tools that could be used for the SDGs. It's also evident that the lecture that apart from the major urban centers, there is low penetration of pipe-borne water inside premises. This is really very sad. As it stands, I think I take responsibility for this. As it stands, I don't think Ghana is likely to meet the SDG target 6.1. It's not possible. We cannot achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water. The Millennium Development Goals talked about having improved water by half. Improved water is a wide category. So, protected well is improved. Pipe-borne water outside dwelling is improved. Public standpipe is improved. So, with the exception of surface water and unprotected well and spring. And I think Ghana met the Millennium Development Goal target. But we will not meet the Sustainable Development Goal because safe water alone will dislodge us. Then the number of districts that depend on boreholes as their dominant source of drinking water is also very high. there's a need for effective regulation of this water service. Now, borehole has also become very common both in the northern, southern part of the country. And the sachet water, we don't even know whether some come from this borehole. But it appears there's lack of regulation when it comes to borehole. Who is regulating the borehole, especially in terms of the water quality? There should also be strict enforcement of laws banning illegal mining in water bodies, as well as revocation of LI 242. And here I have to commend the Academy of Arts and Sciences. In December 15th, 2023, there was a press conference, and the Academy made a very profound statement, especially on the revocation of LI 2462. And I think that is what many people, as CSOs, etc., have taken up. And I think something is being done. I think today I heard that the Attorney General has laid an instrument with respect to that. So I think the Academy has done well with respect to this, based on the statement that, so illegal mining is a major threat to our quest for providing potable drinking water. And what I raised earlier, there should also be uniformity in terms of buffer zones for mining in water bodies and forests. The current buffer zones by different organizations should be reviewed. I think this is something, the 100 meters, I don't think is acceptable. Then sachet water, even though it's providing a temporary relief, it's not sustainable. We cannot depend on sachet water is not sustainable. And we should make sure that sachet water does not undermine the country's efforts at making sure that every household or community has pipe-borne water. Sachet water is providing a temporary relief, but that should not undermine our efforts at making sure that every community area in Ghana is connected to pipe-borne water. And Ghana Water Company should also intensify current efforts at replacing old and corroded pipes. Accra's population, as Ghana's population grows and climate change, water scarcity and inequality are likely to worsen at both national and local levels. It's imperative that water resource policy planning and management is informed by accurate, up-to-date data analysis at the appropriate geographical scale. In terms of future research, I think there is an urgent need to undertake disease mapping in illegal mining areas. The Ghana Academy's plan for also made a statement, part of their statement last year also talked about the urgent need to look at the health implications of these mining areas. So given the multiplicity of issues and stakeholders involved in the water sector, there's a need for a national summit to craft a medium and long-term plan on drinking water access in Ghana. The goal is to provide every area in the community with affordable and safe drinking water. I know it comes with finances, financial burden. So these are the multiplicity of organizations involved in the water sector. And as academic researchers, we are also part. So University of Ghana, KNUST, University of Cape Coast, CSIR, Water Research Institute, maybe I should have put the academy there also. Development partners, United States Agency for International Development, UNICEF, Danish International, the World Bank, European Union, Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission, then they fall under the regulatory bodies. Then ministries and major national agencies, research institutes, private service providers, National Association of Sachet Water, public service providers, mining companies, local authority, the district, municipal, metropolitan, etc. And I think Ghana Statistical Service, they also generate these data. So these are the multiplicity of organizations involved in the water sector. And I think a water summit or stakeholder meetings involving all these, sitting down to be able to look at a long-term perspective for our water sector is urgently needed. Thank you.
Another round of applause for him. You know, one of the things that when I was in school is that when you are studying geography, you need to draw maps. And I'm bad when it comes to drawing. I'm not the type who would like. But then he has shown us that geography is one of the disciplines where maps are used. And I think he has shown that in the lecture, which is very important. But I have some takeaways. The first one I want to flag is the whole issue of access to water. Under normal circumstances, without galamsey and all that, we still had inequality in water access. Now, 80% of our water bodies have been polluted, and we are left with only 20% And that will tell us that the inequalities would widen in terms of water access. And meanwhile, we are six years away from the end of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. 6 years, are we going to get everybody to have good drinking water, especially when the craze now is to depend on sachet water? I have a problem with that. So the point he has made is that we need to revisit our policy on water. And what we have done in this country is that, let us decentralize. If you decentralize, you are going to reduce inequalities among districts, municipalities, and metropolitan assemblies. So we have been able to do that. But even from what he has said, there are metropolitan assemblies which are the highest, which do not have good drinking water. So why are we always saying that decentralization should reduce inequality? It is theoretical. Practically, it hasn't happened. We need to deal with that. So how can we make sure that decentralization will improve access to water? We have not been able to do that. The other takeaway which I want to stress is the whole issue of the multiplicity of institutions involved in water. There are several institutions, state and non-state actors. What are they doing? Lack of coordination, mandate overlaps, etc., etc. To the extent that the Ghana Water Company, which is supposed to be the holding institution, has failed. Even though once a while they increase tariffs, we have not seen appreciable improvement in water supply. So I think that we also need to look at the multiplicity of institutions. Is that the way of reducing the institutions, which will help us to improve, coordination, and with the improvement in coordination, we should be able to get things done. I think that may be one of the things that we'll have to look at. The multiplicity of institutions involved will need to be reduced. And then, of course, we need a more viable, vibrant institution which should be able to hold the remaining institutions together to be able to deliver water. My third point, or my third takeaway, is that it looks like history does repeat itself. He made a very important point from the beginning, at the beginning, that, look, even in the centuries back, there was cholera. And Accra today is witnessing cholera. Again, it shows the link between water and sanitation. If your water is poor, your sanitation will also be poor. So what can we do? So I think that when history is repeating itself, we should at the same time try as much as possible to learn from history so that we do not repeat our mistakes. My final point. Okay, he made, the title of the lecture is also on flavors. So I thought I was going to give us, something about the taste, water quality, water, but he moved away from there and said no, he was going to look at the spatial dimensions. But see, even if you are going to look at the spatial dimensions of water access, we need to have more evidence. And he has been able to give us issues or figures or pictures which have been used, taking into account remote sensing. And I think we should also be able to deal with some of these issues about what kind of choices and what kind of spatial dimensions which we need to look at when it comes to water access. On that note, I would like to thank Professor Samuel AGYEI-MENSAH for this stimulating lecture. He was on schedule, he was on time. I was looking at the time and he was able to make it. So thanks a lot. Let us clap for him again.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair. Please, let's appreciate the Chair also. And before we invite the Department of Geography and Resources Development, University of Ghana to make their presentation, Chair, please permit me to make this comment. And as Speaker, I observed the slide that showed the types of or sources of water. You showed 2 brands of water. But I thought, given where you are coming from, you would have showed us UGel Premier Water. I'm sure the registrar will agree with me. So please, let's invite Department of Geography and Resources Development to make their presentation. Can go out. I invite you to acknowledge.
Did you come up?
No, you go down. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so please we'll invite the speaker to acknowledge some important persons before we give our announcement. So.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I would like to acknowledge some organizations. WaterAid, one of our sponsors, if they are here, maybe they could send a wave. Oh, thank you very much. Then the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. I see the director is here. Thank you very much. Then University of Ghana Business School. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Then the project that sponsored Jacob, Pathways to Equitable Healthy Cities Welcome Trust. We also thank Pathways for sponsoring this event. I also would like to thank my own department, Department of Geography and Resource Development, for also sponsoring. And I'd like to thank the Secretariat of the Academy. They provided very supportive services, especially in terms of the letters to organizations, etc. So I think, is it Kate Wampong? Yes. So I thank the Academy. And I had to reach out to Business School itself because I think we have to start looking within before going out. So, okay, so I thank everybody for coming here, and to Jacob, and finally to my wife who is seated here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Professor AGYEI-MENSAH. So let's take these few announcements and then we'll acknowledge a few more people. So upcoming events, we'll have Professor Regina Apia Opong, a fellow of the Academy, deliver her inaugural lecture on the topic, Medicinal Plants, a Rich Natural Resource of Ghana to be Harnessed for National Development. And this will take place on Thursday, 31st October 2024, in this same auditorium at 5:30 p.m. There will be the Founders Week program on the theme, Leveraging on the Fourth Industrial Revolution, from 12th November to 15th November 2024, again in this same auditorium at 5:30 p.m. Let's all endeavor to be present. Chair, please permit me to acknowledge the fellows who are here and a few who are also online. Please give us a wave, all fellows. Thank you very much. Let me especially acknowledge some officials of the Academy. We have the President of the Academy, Professor Kofi Opoku-Nti. My Dean at the University of Ghana Business School. Then we have Professor Emerita Professor Isabella Kwachi, who is the Vice President in charge of the Science section. We also have two former Vice Chancellors of the University of Ghana, Emeritus Professor Ivan AGYEI-MENSAH. Prof, thank you very much for coming. And Emeritus Professor CMB Tego, please give us a wave. We've been here since 9:30 today in a very long interview session, and then we stayed for this program. So, Prof, thank you very much. I like your energy. We also want to acknowledge staff and faculty from the Department of Geography and Resources Development, and then the entire University of Ghana. Please give us a wave if you're here. I know the lecturer has already acknowledged his family, but Registrar, please give us a wave. Registrar of the University of Ghana. Let's also acknowledge students from Laboni Senior High School. And students from Accra Academy High School. Like they say, Accra Beleu. And thank you to all of you for making time and sitting through this exciting lecture. God bless all of us. Good night. you.